Hi everybody, this is All That and Then Some with Dewana. I'm Dewana, and today is going to be a video that has been long in the making. It's something that I wrote about over a year ago, and God has been pushing me to actually talk about it out of my mouth into a screen like this. So that's what I'm doing today. But first, let me welcome you back to All That and Then Some with Dewana. What I like to do is tell stories of my past that have got me to my present disposition in life with just trying to live the most godly life I can since I've given my life back to Christ by using the Word of the Day app. That's how I relive and retell stories about me, hoping to not just influence, but maybe strike a chord in somebody to get to know God and know that God sees us all as being all that and then some. So I'm just going to let you know I'm probably going to cry at some point in this video. I'm probably going to change my clothes sometime in this video as well because I'm probably not going to be able to finish it in one day just because it's a very, very mature content. It's about my life, but it's still mature content, and it's something that um, I've come to grips with, but it's not something that's easily talked about. So I've got my love pillow so I can hold on to it and squeeze it and all that good stuff. So the word of the day I picked today was
Reprobate.
reprobate. And what it means is a person without moral scruples. And I looked it up and it says, what is the biblical meaning of reprobate? A depraved, unprincipled, or wicked person, a drunken reprobate, a person rejected by God and beyond hope of salvation. Wow, that's deep. That's deep. You understand? So I named this to feel like a reprobate. And before I go into my personal story, I need to tell the story that got me to telling my story. I actually wrote about this in my blog almost a year ago, and poured my heart, poured my heart out in that blog. I'm going to try to find it, and I will leave the link down in my contents. But God has been really pushing me out of my comfort zone, and my comfort zone has always been writing. Um, it's easier to write without having to show your face or my face per se. But let me just get to where the story begins. All right, so over a year ago, as you guys know, if you've been watching my videos, I have 4 children. And out of those 4 children, I have 3 sons. And over a year ago, one of my sons came to me telling me that they were expecting a child, but they didn't think that the child was going to be born. They believed that the mother was going to get an abortion. And at that point in time, I didn't really have any opinion about it because it wasn't, this is going to sound bad, but it wasn't my daughter to be worried about it. Um, but I've always kind of been blasé about abortion, something I never really want to talk about um, to anybody. I just felt like that was somebody's personal choice. But what happened when I got the phone call that my grandchild had been aborted, it opened up memories for me that I had kept dormant for so many years. Um, at the age of 16 going on 17, I was a junior in high school, and I myself had an abortion. And that wasn't my first one. I mean, that was my first one, but it wouldn't be my last one. Let me say that. And there's such a stigma put on people. This is something that you know, getting an abortion is nothing that you talk about, whether you're into church or whether you're out of church. You don't go around. I mean, nowadays, I don't know. There are girls that go around talking about, I'm gonna kill my baby, you know, and they act like it's no big deal. Me, that was 20 plus years ago when I first did it. It was not something that you talked about. It was something that when it happened. You put it away, way back in your head. You try to forget about it. But when I found out that my grandchild was aborted, all of a sudden I started getting all these feelings. All the feelings that I had relating to the abortions that I have gone throughout my life returned. And that's why I want to talk about it. To feel like a reprobate. Once I rededicated my life to Christ, I really started to think about that was when it happened in between that time in the beginning when I rededicated my life back to Christ, you know. So I felt like it was God telling me, you need to deal with this. You need to talk about it. You need to forgive yourself. And not need to move on, but you need to recognize that you don't just have 4 children, Dewana, you really have 7. And that was something very hard for me to do. It's still hard. This is hard for me to do, to sit here in front of this camera and say, I'm a woman who has had 3 abortions in her life. Now, mind you, they were over 20 years ago that I did it. I wasn't living a godly life, you know, but when I rededicated my life back to Christ, I always had this thought in the back of my head, if I didn't think about what I did, God will still love me, you know. But I felt like such a reprobate. I felt like I was always hiding behind this secret. A secret that nobody knew about. I was always hiding behind it. So that's why I want to talk about it now, because I I know I am not the only person in this world, especially in the Black community, who has undergone something like this in their life. So I'm just going to give like quick little backstories on each one. And I mean, like I said, I did write a blog about it that was very specific, and I'm going to try to find it, and so I can put it down there so you can really get the gist of where I was coming from, and you know what emotions were stirred up from just that incident of losing my first grandchild. So when I was 16, I was young, dumb, like they used to say, young, dumb, full of cum, and was talking to a guy and found out I was pregnant. Told my mother that I was pregnant. Me and my mom went to his house with his father, and my mom proceeded in telling the young man that, you know, my daughter is pregnant. It's about 2 months pregnant. What are we going to do about it? And he pulled out a calendar and started going through like the calendar a couple months back, trying to see if he could, if during the time that I'm saying that I'm pregnant, was he with me then? And I remember that clear as day. Like I'm actually looking over here, and I could see me standing there, not saying anything when he has this calendar out. Like I was some random chick, who wasn't coming to his house every day, that wasn't in a relationship with him for the past three to 4 months. It was a summer romance, but I was in love, in my head. For him to do that, um, it was very traumatic. So I was a junior in high school, about to be a senior. So um, after talking over with my mother, it was decided that I wanted to go to college, and this is something that can stand in the way of me pursuing my dreams. So um, by the time I had the abortion, now mind you, this was back in 1991, I believe. Um, I might have been 3.5 or almost 4 months. And back then, getting an abortion at that time, it was a 2-day procedure. And I remember going to the clinic in New Jersey, that's where I lived. And I remember seeing the protesters outside. And I remember thinking, I'm about to take a life. But, I was 16. I didn't know any better. Um, went back the next day, and the procedure was finished. Once it was over, I bottled up that stuff. I crumpled it up like it was a piece of paper, and I threw it in the trash. I threw that memory in the trash because I didn't want to think about it ever again. So I'm sitting here saying to myself, God, why are you having me do this? Yeah, I'm gonna have to keep stopping, I'm saying, God, why, why do I have to do this, And because you feel such a feeling of shame, unworthiness, guilt, something that I did at a young age, at such a young age, 16, 26, 36, that was almost 30 years ago. I still feel like that 16-year-old girl, like it just happened yesterday. And I'm like, God, you made me write about it, and I put that out. Wasn't that enough? But he's telling me I have to push through this, and I got to talk about it. I got to show these emotions, because he wants us to know that regardless of our faults, he still loves us. And as long as we ask for forgiveness and it comes from our hearts, he's going to forgive us. So I got to push through this, y'all. I got to push through. All right. So, and who wants to admit, like, who wants to be the person to admit, oh, no, I didn't just have one abortion. No, I didn't have two. Yeah, I had three. Who wants to admit that? Who in their right mind wants to ever admit that? Me? No, I never would have. Truthfully, this never would have came out if it wasn't for me and my relationship that I have with God, and God showing up and showing out and telling me, Dewana, you need to tell your stories. You need to tell your testimony. You need to tell your life's pitfalls and heartbreaks and breakthroughs, because even though this is a tragedy and this is still traumatic to me, it's still a breakthrough, because I'm breaking through the chains of being ashamed. I'm breaking the shackles that have been on my feet, and I hope that I'm opening up a dialect for women in and out of church who've had to make this kind of decision, and later on in their life they ask God for forgiveness and worry that they're not forgiven for this certain thing that they've done in their lives. And he wants us to know that we are forgiven. But he wants us to look at ourselves, and he wants us to forgive ourselves for what we've done. So, let me get off my high horse. Sorry. So, all right, so let's turn around. That was junior year. Senior year. Dewana didn't learn nothing. Dewana didn't learn a thing, okay? Um, but this story kind of works out differently. I was about to graduate from high school, senior in high school, found out I was pregnant, you know. Kept it from my family. Not as long as I did the first one, but I kept it from my family. Um, they found out, and in no way, shape, or form am I putting blame on anybody for any of the decisions that were made in my life back when I was younger. I went along with the decisions, so you know, this was I'm owning up to whatever happened. So when I went into this time, when I got this procedure done, I was in Delaware. I remember walking in to the clinic and going in the room and getting on the table. And I remember the nurse talking to me, and she said something, and I precisely remember telling her, I don't want to do this. I have an ugly cry, y'all, so I'm not trying to show my ugly cry. But I remember getting on that table and telling the nurse, I don't want to go through with this. And I remember her saying, oh no, it's going to be okay, you know. No, you're just nervous. No, it wasn't that I was nervous. I did not want to do it. And I knew in my heart I didn't want to do it. So I remember the doctor came in, and I remember saying, I don't want to do this, sir. Is it too late for me to get up and not do this? I remember the machine coming on, and I remember saying, stop, I don't want to do this. And I don't know if they gave me something. I remember throwing up, and I remember waking up in the recovery room. And I felt such an emptiness because I really tried to stop it. I need some tissues. Oh, God. I don't got none. Hold on. Okay. I found a little washcloth. I found my grandson's washcloth. Ain't that something? My grandson. So, I felt cold. I felt so ashamed. Because how can I put myself in this situation again? And this time when I was in this situation, I tried to stop the situation. I wasn't listened to once again. Once again, I wasn't, my voice wasn't heard. Even though I opened my voice and I shouted and I pleaded and I cried, I didn't want to do this. So once again, I took that memory and I crumpled it up, threw it in the trash, way back in my brain, But I'm going to tell you what I did. I said to myself then, the next time I get pregnant, I'm not telling anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody until it's too late. And I can't get an abortion. I can't be talked into an abortion. I can't talk myself into one because I can't go through this again. I can't, because even though I wasn't no godly woman then, I was feeling some type of way, about the things I was doing. So I went away to college, went away to Hampton University, and my fast butt, same person I was pregnant by just 6 months ago, I went home during Thanksgiving, got pregnant by him again, and I went through the whole school year in Hampton, Virginia, pregnant. Didn't go to any classes. My classes I called breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because I was having a baby. I knew once I left there in May, in the next 3 to 4 months, I was going to be having a baby. It was nobody going to be able to stop me. And I had my first son August 10th of 1993. And my life was forever changed. All right, so I had to take a little break, and I was going to finish this tomorrow, but I went on Instagram and I saw my pastor, Pastor Sybil Bull, and she had made a video talking about pushing past your pain to get to your purpose. Um, and I'm telling you, everything she said, I'm like, God, you know what? Okay, I'm doing it. All right, so last story, and then I'll get to the meaning of why um I named this to feel like a reprobate. So last story, I said, my son changed my life. I had him in 1993. And then I turned around and followed that with another son in 1995. I had a daughter 10 months later in 1996. By this time, I was 21. I believe I was 21, and I had 3 kids, all under the age of 3 years old. And I found myself pregnant again. And at this time that I was pregnant, like I said, my daughter was a baby. My other son was just 10 months older than her, so I had 2 babies in diapers. I was living in a hotel room with my kid's father. Um, my oldest son was staying with me sometimes. Other times he was staying with my relatives. Uh, I didn't have a place. I was homeless. I was living in a hotel on the highway. So when I found out I was pregnant again after my daughter, I said, like, seriously, Dewana, like, what is wrong with you that you keep on putting yourself in these situations? So, and this time I didn't I'm not putting this on anybody else. Even though I didn't put the other 2 on anybody else, I felt like in the other 2 I was influenced. This one, it was all me. I looked and I said, what right do I have to bring in another child into this world, into this life that I'm living right now? I was living in a motel room that had 2 full-size beds, a gas plate, a small refrigerator. I was had a life of hopelessness, and I didn't feel it was. Couldn't justify me bringing a life into what my hopeless life was. Why should I submit a child to come into this world and live a life with a mother who had 3 kids and still hadn't gotten together? Why was I living in a motel room? Why was I with a baby daddy who felt it was okay for me to live in a motel room? And I'm turning around getting pregnant by him again. These are the thoughts that were going in my mind at that time. So I said, you know what, Dewana? This time it's personal. And I justified it by saying, I'm doing this for this baby. It's not for me. I'm doing this for this baby. And truthfully, I might have been doing it for my mentality because I was already in a depressed state. So my mental was just off. It was off. It was whacked. So I remember going to the city, gave a different name, went by myself. My kid's father didn't even go with me. In fact, I don't even think he really even cared about, you know, the whole situation for real, for real. And to be all the way honest, I don't remember much about that time. I really don't. I really don't. Um, and maybe that's just God helping me to not um, to not feel so much pain and guilt that He's just blocked out that whole process and that whole part of that story. Um, but yeah, but I came back. I was still living in a motel. I think I lived in that motel for another 3 to 4 months. And I think we finally got a place. And a year and a half later, after having my daughter, I had my last son. So, fast forward 20 plus years later, and you have one of your children coming to you saying, well, mom, you know, she got an abortion. And when I tell you, I felt like it was me. I felt like he was talking about me, like he knew my secret, you know. And I had never told my children. I never told anybody, you know. Truthfully, I never told anybody uh, this part of my life, you know. Um, but it hurt. It hurt, and I cried. I cried for my grandchild that I will never see again. And for the first time ever in over 20 plus years, I cried for the children that I never got to meet. And I asked God to forgive me for those decisions I made when I was younger, because I didn't know how much of a gift babies were. Because all of a sudden, after that happened, I started seeing TV shows about women who had trouble getting pregnant, and women who've had 4 or 5 miscarriages and was trying, and here I was, young, dumb, and stupid, you know, and full of cum, getting pregnant, and all willy nilly, and just it tore at my heart. And but even in that sadness, God was actually proud of the fact, and I can hear him saying it. Yes, this is what you need to do. Yes, this you needed to feel these emotions. You needed to get this out. This is something that has been holding you hostage for 20 plus years of your life. The shame, the shame of it all has been holding me hostage for 20 plus years of my life. And he wanted me to let go of that shame because he had forgiven me. I wasn't a reprobate in his eyes. I wasn't anybody who didn't have moral scruples, who would not be forgiven by God. He loved me. And he loved me enough to let me shed those tears for my children. And he let me know that they were there with him and that I will meet them. I'm just so thankful. And that's why a lot of times I don't think I'm worthy of God's love. Not just because of that, because a lot of things I've done. I've lived a life, y'all. You know, but those 4 kids that I did have, I wasn't the best mother. I was an alcoholic. I was a drug addict. I put a man before my children. So I've had to learn to forgive myself for a lot of things, not just this. But this one thing was something that God had put on my heart to let me know I'm not the only one who suffers from this. But the only way to get over it, not get over it, not, I don't want to say that, get over it. The only way to live with it is to live through it. And I'm pushing past this pain of talking about it to get to the purpose that he made me make this video, the purpose that he made me write that blog, and now the purpose that he made me make this video. Because there's somebody out there who's feeling ashamed and guilty of making a decision to abort their child. Whether it happened yesterday, last year, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. You're still holding on to that guilt. And you too might feel like a reprobate. But I'm here to let you know God made us. He knew everything that was going to happen in our lives, even before we were even thought of being made. Because he already made us in his image. He already had the story of our lives foretold from the minute that we were even thought of being made by our parents. You understand? So, to know that I went through those experiences to get me to this place right here, so that I could be sitting here looking in this camera and telling you, if you're going through this, you got to heal. You got to ask God for forgiveness, and you got to forgive yourself. It's something. I mean, God is something. God's amazing. God's amazing, you know. And then January 1st, 2019, not January 1st, Lord, excuse me, January 11th, 2019, my second grandchild was born. Mason Ian Armani Williams. He is the light of my life. And I remember when my daughter told me she was pregnant, I told her, you know, even though in my past I had abortions, I know what kind of damage that can do to somebody's mental. I just want to let you know, this child is a child of God. This child is meant to be here, and you will be supported. And if you saw that grandson of mine, you will see that he is the light of everybody in this family's lives. And he opened up a whole nother section of my heart. And I'm forever thankful that God has given me the opportunity to be a grandmother. He will continue to give me more opportunities to be a grandmother. Just keep on sharing and keep on loving and keep on growing. So, ladies, if you've been through, and this experience doesn't have to be your experience. You might have a different experience. But if you have an experience that has kept you hostage, has held you hostage, because you feel like you're a reprobate, you feel like you're unworthy of God's love, you're unworthy of God's forgiveness, you're unworthy of God's strength, you're unworthy of God's unfailing admiration of you and adoration of you, you're wrong. He wants us to know that we are all that and then some. Even with all of our flaws, all of our mishaps, he still loves us. He wants us to learn to love ourselves and know that in his eyes we would never be a reprobate. Never. That's the power of forgiveness. And it starts with us. So let's work on that, ladies, okay? Until next time, like you guys to like, comment. If you have any comments, please share them below. Um, and you can email me if you want to send me any email or you want to talk to me personally about anything. My email is right here, Dwana2387@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. I will be going deeper. Yeah, I got some stories to tell y'all. I'm telling you, I'm going out of 2019 with a bang. He's letting me, he's shedding some of these dead weights that have been hanging on, that have been I can't walk. You know what I'm saying? He's shedding them. He's shedding them day by day by day, and I'm so grateful. So remember, ladies, um, God made you all that and then some. All right. Until next time. Bye.